Get ready to discover Florianopolis like never before. Sure, people call it the Magic Island for its dreamy beaches and chill vibes, but beneath the palm trees and ocean breeze lurk some unexpected, downright bizarre cultural norms and local legends. We're diving into 12 taboos that might just leave you speechless, from hidden witchcraft folklore to unspoken rules about beach attire that could land you in hot water. Stick around. Florianopolis has quirks that will make you see Brazil's island paradise in a whole new light. Taboo #12. Azorian superstitions and witchcraft legends. Florianopolis isn't called the Magic Island for nothing. Locals say the island is laced with enchanting energy, ancient beliefs, and old-school Azorian folklore that arrived with the Portuguese settlers centuries ago. According to these tales, witches, or bruxas, once roamed the island at night, casting spells on unsuspecting villagers, messing with fishermen's nets, and lurking around lonely beaches. Ask around in older fishing communities. Some folks will still swear they've seen strange lights drifting across the water or heard eerie cackles near the dunes. One enduring rumor claims that if you wander the shores at dusk in Lagoa da Conceição, you might stumble on what looks like a circle of women chanting in a language you don't recognize. Some say they're just spiritual devotees performing moon rituals. Others swear these gatherings are modern-day bruxas, honoring the island's energies. It's the kind of story that might give you goosebumps, or make you laugh, depending on your level of skepticism. But here's the local taboo. Openly mocking these witchy legends can rub some Floripa natives the wrong way. Sure, younger generations might grin and say it's all silly folklore, but many older residents treat these stories with respect. They see them as part of their heritage. If you brush it off too aggressively, don't be surprised if someone scolds you for insulting centuries of island history. After all, you're on an island that takes pride in its nickname, Ilha da Magia, Island of Magic. Speaking of magic, some locals hint that the magical vibe extends to everyday life. Ever wonder why so many people find love or have life-changing epiphanies in Florianopolis? Some blame it on the island's mystical currents. Others say it's just the fresh sea breeze and laid-back lifestyle putting everyone in a better mood. Either way, keep an open mind and maybe avoid wandering into the dunes alone at night, unless you're up for a ghostly encounter or two. Taboo #11. Respecting traditional fishing communities. Despite the modern apartments, chic boutiques, and digital nomad coffee shops popping up everywhere, Florianopolis remains deeply tied to its fishing roots, especially in spots like Ribeirão da Ilha or Barra da Lagoa. Generations of Azorian families have been casting nets and hauling in the day's catch long before the island became a hotspot for vacationers. If you roam too far into these fishing enclaves, snapping photos like you're on safari, you might trigger some intense side-eye from locals who see it as an invasion of their privacy. Fishermen here aren't just making a living. They're upholding family traditions spanning hundreds of years. They have their own methods, superstitions, and rhythms. Ones that don't necessarily jive with busloads of tourists looking for Instagram-worthy moments. Show some respect. If you want to photograph them repairing nets or tossing fish into baskets, at least ask politely. Barging in for a close-up could be viewed as rude, and rumors abound of visitors getting told off in no uncertain terms. Another taboo: aggressively haggling over fish prices. Local markets might display freshly caught tuna or robust shrimp, but these aren't mass-produced items. In peak fishing season, families rely on every sale. Haggling too hard, like you're in a tourist trap bazaar, can come across as disrespectful, especially since the fish is already reasonably priced by many global standards. Some travelers brag online about snagging super cheap seafood, but older Floripa natives might frown if you treat the island's prized catch like discounted souvenirs. And watch where you're walking. Certain piers or docks are actually private, belonging to families who depend on them for a living. Strolling onto a fisherman's wharf for a better beach snapshot might get you an earful. One local legend even claims that a tourist's camera was accidentally dropped into the sea by an annoyed fisherman guarding his territory. No one can confirm if that really happened, but it's enough to make you think twice about entering someone's workspace uninvited. At the heart of this taboo is the sense that Floripa isn't just an exotic playground for outsiders. Real people with deep histories and customs still shape the island's identity. Treat them with courtesy, and they might share stories or offer tips on the best moqueca recipes. Approach them like props for your travel blog, and you might end up with more than a stern glance, like a permanent memory of how you discovered the boundaries of local hospitality. Taboo #10. Beach culture boundaries. Bikinis versus conservative spots. Yes, Brazil is famous for its bold beach fashion, and Florianopolis is no exception. In fact, you'll find some of the smallest bikinis, and sungas for men, on beaches like Praia Mole or Joaquina, where the waves attract surfers and the shore draws sun worshippers looking to flaunt or admire toned bodies. But not all of Floripa's 40-plus beaches share the same vibe. Some are more conservative, especially in neighborhoods where families settle in for calm waters and quiet weekends. The unspoken taboo? Showing too much skin in the wrong spot can raise eyebrows. A thong bikini might be perfectly normal at Jurerê International, known for its glamorous, party-oriented crowd. But stroll through a calmer, family-friendly beach like Daniela, or a traditional fishing village in a barely-there suit, and you could earn disapproving looks, especially from older locals who hold on to more modest standards. Rumor has it that one unfortunate tourist was politely asked to cover up by a local family who felt her beach attire was too risque around children. Meanwhile, taking your beachwear off the sand and into city streets isn't always welcomed. Sure, you might see teenagers grab an acai bowl in their board shorts or bikinis straight off the beach. But if you walk into a full-on restaurant dripping salt water in a thong or sunga, don't be shocked if the manager politely directs you to a seat outdoors, or nowhere at all. The same goes for local buses. It's generally frowned upon to hop on with minimal coverage. It's not illegal, but it's definitely considered a faux pas. Then there's the occasional rumor about certain naturist-friendly beaches, like Praia da Galera, where clothing is optional. While most Floripa beaches aren't designated nude zones, locals know about these pockets. If you happen to wander into one by accident, the taboo flips. Staring or acting scandalized at others' nudity might be your big no-no. People who choose such beaches do so expecting acceptance, or at least nonchalance about their unclothed state. It's all about reading the room, or in this case, the shoreline. In a city with such cultural mix, you'll find everything from liberated surfers to devout churchgoers who frequent the beaches. Adapt accordingly. You don't have to ditch your personal style, but being mindful of where you are can save you awkward encounters. If you're unsure, look around. If everyone else is in micro swimwear, you're good. If families and grandmas populate the sand, consider a more modest approach. It's a simple rule that keeps the peace and shows you respect the island's varying beach cultures. Taboo #9. Nightlife etiquette and island party scene. Florianopolis has become a legendary party destination, especially around Jurerê International, often dubbed the Saint-Tropez of Brazil. DJs from around the globe spin electronic beats in beachfront clubs, and cocktail prices can soar higher than the local dunes. Celebrities, influencers, and wealthy travelers flock to this slice of Floripa for glamorous nights out. But there's a subtle line between enjoying the scene and offending those who live here year-round. First off, Floripa might be a party hub, but not every local appreciates being labeled a party islander. Some people resent the idea that the city's only appeal is nightlife, ignoring its quieter traditions and natural beauty. So if you go around proclaiming, "I'm here to rage nonstop," you might not get the warmest reception from folks who'd rather talk about the island's history or environmental challenges. Aggressive flirting or gringo hunting is another taboo. Stories circulate about foreigners who swagger into clubs, assuming every local is dying to meet them. While Brazilians are known for being affectionate, that doesn't mean boundaries don't exist. Overstep, and you might get shut down fast. Some clubs even have bouncers keeping an eye on tourists who appear too rowdy or pushy. Word on the street is that a few visitors have been politely escorted out, and in some cases not so politely, after crossing lines with local women or men. Speaking of rowdy, the VIP culture in Jurerê can get intense. Popping champagne bottles and flashing currency might seem like the norm in certain beach clubs, but plenty of island residents see it as tacky. Online forums mention how some Brazilians from other states come to Floripa just to show off, booking pricey tables, wearing designer outfits, and acting as if they own the place. Locals may roll their eyes at such behavior, especially if it disrupts the relaxed spirit that defines most of the island. Then there are rumors of private mansion parties that only certain circles get invited to. Think big houses overlooking the beach, exclusive guest lists, and top DJs spinning until sunrise. Whether you believe the hype or not, stories abound of hush-hush gatherings where deals are made, fortunes are flaunted, and unsuspecting newcomers might feel like they've stumbled into an episode of a reality TV show. If you somehow snag an invite, the taboo is betraying that privacy. Taking sneaky photos or bragging about it publicly could get you blacklisted from future events. Overall, Floripa's nightlife can be a blast if you keep your ego in check. Yes, it's a hotspot for parties, but it's also a city full of real people who value politeness, authenticity, and a sense of camaraderie. Strike up conversations instead of bragging, respect personal space, and appreciate the island beyond the neon lights. That's the surest way to party in Florianopolis without stepping on local toes. Taboo hash 8. Public affection and sensual dancing. When does it cross the line? Brazilians tend to be open and relaxed when it comes to affection. Holding hands, hugging, or sharing a playful kiss on the dance floor isn't typically a big deal. In Florianopolis, you'll see couples snuggled up on the beach at sunset, or dancing close at a beach bar in Lagoa da Conceição. But there's still a fine line between sweet public displays of affection and full-on R-rated behavior that makes bystanders squirm. Take, for instance, the nightlife scene again. Samba clubs, foro gatherings, or electronic music parties are places where you'll encounter all sorts of expressive dancing. It's common to see dance partners swaying hip to hip, faces close, sometimes building up a pretty steamy vibe. That said, if you start crossing that invisible boundary into overtly sexual territory, groping, borderline indecent moves, or intense makeout sessions in the middle of a crowded floor, locals might politely or bluntly ask you to tone it down. This is especially true in more family-friendly or casual bars. Carnival season is a slightly different beast. If you visit Floripa during that time, street parties, blocos, can get wild, with swirling bodies, face paint, and kisses exchanged among strangers. People might temporarily loosen those social boundaries. Even then, there's a certain unspoken code. Yes, it's party time, but outright explicit acts in public? That's a recipe for trouble. Stories surface each year about individuals who got a bit too carried away and ended up either confronted by the police or subjected to the crowd's collective judgment. In calmer settings, like a seafood restaurant in Ribeirão da Ilha or a local craft fair, couples are expected to keep it tasteful. A light peck is fine, but turning your dinner table into a honeymoon suite will definitely raise eyebrows. One rumor claims that a tourist was once asked to leave a local eatery for what staff described as excessive passion. Nobody can confirm the specifics, but the mere existence of such a story suggests that yes, it can go too far. There's also an interesting nuance here. Floripa is somewhat more conservative than, say, Rio de Janeiro or Salvador, despite its liberal veneer in nightlife districts. You have pockets of deeply traditional communities, many with devout Catholic or Azorean influences. So while you might be able to push the boundaries at a trendy beach bar, in a quieter neighborhood or family-oriented festival, it's best to keep that PDA dialed way down. The final takeaway? Floripa embraces romance and dance as part of life's joys, but it isn't a free pass to stage a personal telenovela wherever you go. If you're not sure, look around. If everyone else is just happily swaying or sharing quick kisses, that's your cue to follow suit. Save the steamier moves for when you're behind closed doors, or maybe in the middle of carnival if you're feeling brave, but even then, proceed with caution. Taboo hash 7. Discussing tourism versus overdevelopment, a double-edged sword. Florianopolis thrives on tourism. Why wouldn't it? With dozens of postcard-perfect beaches, sizzling nightlife, and a chilled island vibe. But behind the Instagram reels, there's growing tension about how fast the city is expanding. Many locals blame an influx of outsiders, both Brazilian and international, for skyrocketing property costs, traffic jams on once peaceful roads, and environmental strain on protected dunes and lagoons. That's why talking about more tourism or championing heavy construction can be a touchy subject in some circles. On one side, entrepreneurs, real estate developers, and certain politicians champion the notion that tourism is the economic lifeblood of the island. More hotels, fancier resorts, exclusive marinas. These projects can generate jobs and global attention. They point to high season booms when restaurants are packed, local guides have endless work, and money flows through the local economy like never before. Online videos often show the bright lights of Jurerê International as evidence that Floripa is on the map for global travelers. But many old-timers and environmental advocates see a darker side. To them, every new high-rise or mega resort chips away at the island's natural charm. They talk of beaches so crowded in summer that it's tough to find a patch of sand to lay your towel. Some blame the traffic bottlenecks on uncontrolled growth that outpaces the road's capacity. Rumors swirl of shady deals allowing big developers to bypass regulations, and whispered stories claim a few beloved nature spots are now off-limits thanks to wealthy landowners who put up fences. What's the taboo? If you rave about the island's potential to become the next big thing in tourism, you may offend those who want to preserve Floripa's slower pace and ecological balance. Conversely, if you harp on about the horrors of overdevelopment, you could clash with people whose livelihoods depend on that expansion. A local bar owner might rely on a steady stream of foreigners to keep the lights on, while a fisherman might see them as the reason for increased pollution in local waters. It's a classic clash: growth versus conservation, modernization versus tradition. In some groups, you'll hear the phrase turismo predatorio, predatory tourism, tossed around, referring to the exploitation of local culture and nature for quick profits. Others believe the city can find a balance if done responsibly. But the discussion can get heated, and no one likes an outsider waltzing in, acting like they have all the solutions. So, if you find yourself at a beachside BBQ, and the topic turns to new hotels or foreign investors, tread gently. Ask questions instead of pushing opinions. Show that you understand the island is more than a playground for tourists. People live here, raise families here, and care deeply about preserving its essence. It's a complicated puzzle, and chances are you'll learn more by listening than by declaring which side is right. Taboo. Hash. 6. Overlooking the Azorean accent and cultural pride. Florianopolis has deep Azorean roots thanks to the Portuguese settlers from the Azores who landed on the island back in the 18th century. Their influence still runs strong, shaping everything from local festivals to architectural styles and language. If you spend enough time talking to longtime islanders, often called manezinhos, you'll notice a distinct accent, peppered with unique expressions and a charming rhythm that sets it apart from the Portuguese heard in São Paulo or Rio. The big no-no is belittling or making fun of that accent. Sure, you might find certain words or intonations unusual if you're used to standard Brazilian Portuguese, but mocking them in front of a native can be a fast way to get icy stares. There's an undercurrent of pride here. Manezinhos have had to watch their city transform into a tourist hotspot, sometimes overshadowing local traditions. That accent is more than a quirk. It's part of the island's identity. One story floating around is about a visitor who heard the phrase "Eita, que coisa mais linda, né, manezinho?" and started laughing out loud, thinking it was a comedic take on Brazilian Portuguese. An older gentleman promptly scolded them, explaining that these were the words of his grandparents and great-grandparents. The traveler, feeling sheepish, realized they'd crossed a cultural line. Whether or not this exact incident happened, it sums up how easy it is to stumble into taboo territory by not showing respect. You might also notice how the local dialect uses different colloquialisms, like istepo, an exclamation that can show surprise or frustration. Mainland Brazilians sometimes don't even understand these terms, and that's okay. Natives often appreciate genuine curiosity. Ask them politely, "O que quer dizer istepo?" and you might get a friendly explanation along with a grin. But if you start imitating the accent in an exaggerated way, you risk being seen as insulting. Then there are local surnames, like Silveira, Cardoso, or Pereira, carried by families who've been here for generations. Some of these folks celebrate Azorean festivals, pass down old recipes, and hold on to folklore about sea journeys from centuries past. In other words, it's a heritage that runs deeper than the fancy new condos sprouting along the coast. Overlook it, and you'll miss a key piece of what makes Florianopolis culturally rich. So if you're learning Portuguese or just traveling through Santa Catarina, keep an ear out for those unique intonations. Celebrate them, rather than treating them like comedic fodder. Asking a local to teach you a few phrases can be a fun icebreaker. Just avoid turning their accent into a punchline. The island's cultural tapestry has enough texture and history to enthrall you without poking fun at the locals' beloved linguistic style. Taboo hash. 5. Sacred verses. Secular festivities, mixing faith and partying. Florianopolis hosts a variety of religious celebrations throughout the year, reflecting the strong Catholic influence from its Portuguese ancestors. Take, for example, the Festa do Divino Espírito Santo, a tradition that many residents treat with deep reverence. Processions move through streets carrying sacred symbols, local women may dress in traditional outfits, and families gather for communal meals. It's a time of devotion and cultural pride. But that doesn't mean the island hits pause on its laid-back, fun-loving spirit. Sometimes religious events collide with Floripa's partying reputation, especially if the calendar places them near beach festivals. Picture it. Half the city is observing a solemn procession, while tourists are busy ordering another round of caipirinhas at a nearby beach bar. This clash can feel jarring to some locals, leading to an unspoken rule. If you happen to wander into a religious festivity uninvited, respect the tone. There are stories about clueless travelers stumbling into a church procession, snapping photos like it's a carnival parade. While this might be innocent, hey, it's colorful. Some worshippers see it as trivializing their faith. Online posts recount how a group of backpackers was politely asked to leave a small chapel after they marched in wearing bikinis and tank tops, obviously fresh off the beach. That might seem normal in a beach town, but in a religious context, it's borderline sacrilege. On the flip side, some younger locals roll their eyes at how certain devout families might object to any partying that overlaps with holy days. Every year, a debate flares up over whether beach clubs should tone down the music if it coincides with a major feast day. Some want to preserve the island's spiritual side. Others argue that modernization means embracing both. You might find older folks labeling certain parties as sinful or complaining about the city's moral decay, while youths insist Floripa can handle both worship and weekend fun. The taboo here is treating religious traditions as mere tourist attractions. Sure, you can be curious. Ask a local about the meaning of a procession or the story behind a saint's statue. Often, they'll be thrilled to share. But keep your voice down, maybe throw on a t-shirt over that bikini, and don't turn a sacred event into your personal photo shoot. Instagram might love it, but the devout participants might not. In short, Florianopolis is known for balancing multiple identities: modern party hub, eco-tourism hotspot, and heritage keeper. Religious festivals are a big part of the heritage thread, and mixing them with beach vibes demands a little cultural sensitivity. You'll likely find plenty of ways to celebrate life on the island without stepping on anyone's faith. Just be aware of the boundaries, and you'll avoid those disapproving stares from the elders. Taboo hash 4. Food etiquette, cafe colonial, seafood, and local customs. When people picture Floripa, they often think of fresh seafood served by the water and big mugs of acai. Those images are spot on. The island's culinary scene is heavily seafood focused, thanks to the local fishing culture. You'll see restaurants boasting tainha, mullet, grilled to perfection, or succulent shrimp dishes that reflect centuries of Azorean influence. But there's also a hidden tradition called Café Colonial, a hearty spread of breads, cakes, jams, cheeses, and cured meats, remnants of European colonization that's still big in the south of Brazil. The taboo? Wincing or openly criticizing dishes can be a fast track to offending a local host, especially if you're in their family-run eatery. If you've got dietary restrictions or simply hate fish, that's cool. Just decline politely. But exclaiming, "Ugh, it smells so fishy," or "You, how can you eat that?" might earn you an icy stare and a reputation for being rude. In a culture that values hospitality, insulting the food is like insulting the family that prepared it. Another point of tension can be how you eat. Some places are super chill about devouring pastel de berbigão, a cockle-filled pastry, with your hands, but others expect you to at least use a napkin or utensil. In typical Brazilian style, pizza might be eaten with a fork and knife in more formal settings, so watch what the locals do. If everyone else is slicing away, you might look uncultured wolfing it down with your bare hands. Though in many casual hangouts, people do just that, so there's no universal rule. Café Colonial is also worth noting. This tradition basically looks like a breakfast buffet exploded in front of you. Loaves of homemade bread, slices of cheese and salami, fruit jams, cakes, cookies, pastries, and coffee that keeps flowing. Some tourists assume it's just for breakfast, but it can be enjoyed at any time of day. The taboo? Loading up your plate to an extreme or wasting food could raise eyebrows. Locals might think you're being gluttonous or disrespecting the work that went into making such a spread. Rumor has it that a group of travelers once labeled the Café Colonial just a bunch of carbs, complaining it was too heavy and not health conscious. A local grandmother apparently lectured them on how these foods sustained generations of islanders through hard labor at sea and in the fields. While no one can verify that story, it captures the emotional attachment Floripa folks have to their culinary heritage. At the end of the day, part of Florianopolis' charm is savoring its flavors, from a fresh oyster in a beach shack to a cozy cafe serving Portuguese-style pastries. Keep an open mind, watch what the locals do, and if a particular dish isn't your style, politely decline without making a dramatic fuss. Chances are you'll discover something else on the menu that'll make your taste buds do a happy dance. Taboo hash. 3. Underrating island spiritual energy and nature protection. Florianopolis is famous for its jaw-dropping natural landscapes, rolling dunes, hidden waterfalls, crystal-clear lagoons, and over 40 diverse beaches. Locals often speak of a special energy that radiates from the island, possibly tied to those old Azorean legends about witches, or simply the mesmerizing interplay of ocean and forest. Some call it spiritual, others chalk it up to nature's raw power. Either way, it's not uncommon to hear longtime residents say something like, "The island chooses who gets to stay." But that mystical aura carries a responsibility. Many islanders treat the environment with near reverence. They might lovingly refer to the dunes as dunas sagradas, sacred dunes, or talk about the curative properties of salt air. Dumping trash, carving your name on rocks, or otherwise vandalizing nature isn't just an offense against tourism rules, it's an insult to the soul of Floripa. Urban legends suggest that some surfers confronted a group of beachgoers who left garbage on the sand, forcing them to clean it up before letting them leave. Whether true or exaggerated, the message is clear. Respect the environment. Lagoa do Peri and Lagoa da Conceição stand out as freshwater gems. The island's biggest lagoon has sections that serve as a crucial water source and delicate ecosystem. Overflowing with life, it's also a hotspot for kayaking and stand-up paddleboarding. But it's a big no-no to treat these waters like your personal trash bin or chemical dump. Locals track these issues closely, especially those who fish or rely on the lagoon for their livelihood. One rumor claims that a neighbor once reported a small hotel for pouring waste into a stream leading to the lagoon, sparking a big legal battle. There's also a segment of Floripa's population deeply involved in alternative spirituality, from Reiki practitioners to yoga enthusiasts who swear by the island's energy vortex. They'll say the veins of the island carry a unique frequency, and that disrespecting nature disrupts everyone's harmony. Even if you find that too esoteric, the bottom line is universal. Messing with the environment is an unspoken taboo. It's not just about laws or fines, it's about community values. So if you're planning a hike to the wild beaches in the south of the island, or a surfing session at Praia do Campeche, remember you're stepping into a place people genuinely see as magical. Step lightly, carry out your trash, and avoid disturbing the wildlife or vegetation. Show a little love to the environment, and it just might return the favor with unforgettable sunsets and enchanting wildlife encounters. After all, in a place many call Ilha da Magia, is it really so hard to believe that nature might reciprocate your respect? Taboo hash. 2. Treating Florianopolis as just another Brazilian beach town. Mention Brazil, and images of Rio's Copacabana or Bahia's Carnival might pop into people's heads. Florianopolis sometimes gets lumped into that generic Brazilian beach city category by outsiders who haven't explored it in depth. But here's the thing, Floripa's identity goes way beyond its shoreline. The island has unique Azorian heritage, a thriving tech scene, local cuisine that's part Portuguese, part seafood, and deeply rooted fishing villages. Oversimplifying it as a party spot with beaches can frustrate locals who are proud of their multifaceted culture. For instance, if you only stick to Jurerê International, you'll see a polished, upscale version of Floripa, dotted with fancy clubs and luxury condos. But that's just one puzzle piece. Explore the southern end, like Armação or Matadeiro, and you'll find laid-back fishing communities with unpaved roads, humble restaurants, and local crafts. Some travelers come away from these areas convinced they've visited two different cities. Locals might say you haven't really felt Floripa until you've tried an early morning boat trip with a fisherman or joined a small town festival in Ribeirão da Ilha. Another point of friction arises when foreigners or even Brazilians from other states compare Florianopolis solely to Rio's beach culture. Sure, you might see surfers, but the vibe is distinct. Less chaos, more family-run bars, and a calmer approach to life, especially in the off-season. Some Manazinhos get annoyed when a well-meaning visitor says something like, "This is just a quieter version of Rio, right?" They might politely correct you, or if they're feeling a little testy, cut the conversation short. Online forums are brimming with comments about digital nomads who come to Floripa expecting an endless summer party, only to realize that outside peak holiday months, the island can be downright tranquil, and even chilly in winter. They sometimes complain about lack of big city convenience, not realizing that many locals embrace the slower pace as part of the island's charm. The taboo is acting like the city exists only for your personal tropical fantasy, ignoring the complexities of everyday life for the people who call it home. Then there's the cultural lineage. Floripa's older neighborhoods preserve Azorian architecture, with colonial-style churches and houses that look plucked from a historical painting. Some residents still speak an old Azorian dialect. There's pride in being the Ilha da Magia, not Beach City hash 563. Reducing it to just sun and surf can feel dismissive of that heritage. If you catch yourself saying, "So, what else is there to do besides the beach?" a local might raise an eyebrow and point you toward their array of hikes, local festivals, art galleries, or gastronomic routes. The moral of the story: treat Floripa as a place with layers. Yes, it has stunning beaches, and you should absolutely enjoy them. But also dig deeper. That might mean sampling taina caught that morning, or visiting a centuries-old Azorian chapel, or chatting with a longtime resident about the island's mystical lore. Locals appreciate it when you recognize that Florianopolis stands on its own cultural and historical foundation, rather than blending into a single Brazil coastal city stereotype. Taboo #1. Forgetting you're on an island. Disrespecting local pace and boundaries. Florianopolis may be a state capital, but at its core, it's still an island. Many aspects of island life, like a looser sense of time, tight-knit community bonds, and a certain protectiveness over resources, still shape daily routines. Some travelers or newcomers forget that the island's vibe can differ drastically from the hustle and bustle of places like Sao Paulo. Acting pushy or demanding instant service might land you in hot water with Manazinhos, who value a slower, more personal approach to things. One big complaint you'll hear from outsiders is about the pace. "Why is everything taking so long?" they'll ask, whether waiting for a bus or being served at a small cafe in Lagoa. The unspoken rule is, patience is a virtue here. Sure, in busier tourist areas, you might find quicker service, but away from the hotspots, people do things on island time. If you barge into a restaurant and snap your fingers for a waiter, don't expect a warm response. There are rumors of chefs intentionally slowing down the meal prep for rude customers, though it's impossible to verify. This also applies to building relationships. In big metropolises, making friends or networking might be a quick exchange of business cards. On the island, it often involves repeated encounters, shared experiences, maybe going to a local festival or beach barbecue. Some newcomers label this as cliquish, but locals see it as safeguarding their sense of community. If you waltz in and expect immediate acceptance without showing respect for local customs, you might be politely kept at arm's length. Then there's the resource aspect. Because it's an island, roads can clog easily, and certain supplies, like specialty goods, don't always arrive in a snap. Locals adapt by planning ahead and not freaking out if the grocery store sells out of certain items on a holiday weekend. A tourist who throws a tantrum at a cashier because a specific imported beer isn't available might get a collective eye roll from everyone in line. The same goes for those who complain about traffic. Yes, it gets intense during peak tourism season, but that's part of the price you pay for living, or vacationing, in paradise. On top of that, remember, many families have been here for generations. They've seen waves of newcomers who come in, exploit the island's beauty, and then leave. Some harbor a protective stance toward their culture, land, and resources. If you're insensitive, say, ignoring local recycling guidelines or scoffing at water rationing during a drought, you can break an unspoken code of respect for the island's fragility. Basically, Floripa might appear modern, but it still beats to an island rhythm. Learn to ease up on the speed dial, engage genuinely with community life, and appreciate how the constraints of geography shape everyday realities. Do that, and you'll probably slip right into the local flow, becoming one of the lucky ones who truly connects with the Ilha da Magia. Rush or push your way through, and you'll discover the city can push back, reminding you that this isn't just some big mainland hub. It's an island, and it has its own rules. Florianopolis may dazzle you with its turquoise waters and rolling hills, but it's more than just a postcard. Beneath the sun-kissed exterior lies a labyrinth of traditions, taboos, and hidden stories that weave together ancient Azorean roots, environmental stewardship, lively party scenes, and quiet fishing life. These 12 taboos offer a glimpse into the island's soul, a place that marries modern tourism with heritage, where singing seagulls and neon clubs coexist, sometimes uneasily. We've explored how local fishermen protect their family docks, how certain beaches demand more modesty, and why a relaxed sense of time can either charm or frustrate newcomers. We've uncovered the unspoken tensions between booming tourism and a desire to preserve the island's natural wonder. We've also seen how bruxas and folklore still color the cultural tapestry of Floripa, reminding us that mythology isn't always confined to dusty old books. Ultimately, these taboos aren't about policing travelers or stifling fun. They're gentle, and sometimes not so gentle, reminders that each community has its own rhythms, boundaries, and sacred spots. Florianopolis stands proud as the Magic Island, a nickname earned through centuries of mystique and natural allure. If you respect the local pace, embrace the culinary quirks, and approach its beaches and traditions with an open heart, you're likely to walk away enthralled. And if the stories are true, maybe even a little enchanted. Remember, the island shares its secrets slowly. Don't rush her. Linger on a hidden beach, chat with a fisherman at sunrise, or ask an elder about the old Azorean tales of bruxas flitting across the moonlit dunes. That's how you'll see past the superficial and into the Floripa that lies beyond the Instagram feeds. If these 12 taboos sparked your curiosity, drop a comment and let us know which one caught you off guard. Have you ever stumbled into a tricky situation on the Magic Island? Or discovered an even weirder local custom that we missed? Share your stories below. And if you're dreaming of visiting Florianopolis, or returning for a deeper dive, give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit subscribe for more insider scoops on captivating destinations around the world. Who knows, maybe our next video will uncover even more of Brazil's hidden gems. Stay tuned!